Max Biaggi was the most hated man in motorcycle racing, and he loved every second of it. 4 250 cubic centimeters world championships, a face that belonged on magazine covers, and an arrogance so thick you could smell it from the back of the grid. But at 54, the Roman Emperor has finally revealed the 5 riders he hated back, and one of them destroyed his entire legacy. Max Biaggi was born to be worshipped, and he made sure everyone knew it. Born in Rome, Italy in 1971, Biaggi carried himself like a gladiator who had accidentally ended up on a motorcycle instead of a chariot. He dominated the 250 cubic centimeters class with 4 consecutive world championships from 1994 to 1997, then moved to the 500 cubic centimeters class, and later MotoGP, expecting to conquer that too. He never did. Not because he wasn't fast enough, because the paddock already had a king, and that king didn't share. Biaggi spent his entire premier class career fighting a war he was destined to lose, but he never stopped swinging. Number 5. Loris Capirossi, the Italian teammate who should have been an ally but became an enemy. Biaggi and Capirossi were both Italian, both fast, both proud. And when they found themselves on the same grid in the 250 cubic centimeters class in the early 90s, the Italian media expected brotherhood. They got war. The 1998 Argentine Grand Prix became the moment that defined everything. Capirossi and Biaggi were fighting for position when Capirossi made contact and Biaggi crashed. Biaggi was furious. Not just angry, furious in the way only an Italian with wounded pride can be. He accused Capirossi of riding dirty. Capirossi said it was racing. The Italian press took sides and the country split down the middle. But what burned Biaggi most was the betrayal. In his mind, Italians were supposed to protect each other in a paddock full of Spaniards and Australians. Capirossi broke that code, and Biaggi never let it go. Years later, when both men were in MotoGP, they barely spoke. Same nationality, same language, different worlds. Biaggi carried that grudge like a scar he refused to let heal. Because for Max Biaggi, loyalty wasn't optional, it was everything. And Capirossi threw it away for one corner in Argentina. Number 4. Tetsuya Harada, the quiet Japanese rider who stole a championship from Biaggi in the most painful way possible. In 1993, Harada and Biaggi fought for the 250 cubic centimeters world title down to the final race. Biaggi was leading the championship. He just needed a safe finish. But Harada rode like a man possessed in that last race, and Biaggi made a mistake under pressure. Harada took the title by a handful of points, and Biaggi's world collapsed, not because he lost to a man he believed was inferior. Biaggi never respected Harada's talent the way he respected others. He saw Harada as a consistent rider who got lucky at the right moment, and losing a championship to someone you don't respect is a wound that never closes. Biaggi went on to win 4 250 cubic centimeters titles after that. He proved his dominance. But he never forgot 1993. He never forgot the feeling of watching Harada celebrate with a trophy that Biaggi believed had his name already engraved on it. That hatred wasn't loud. It was silent, cold, the kind that sits in your chest for decades and poisons every memory of that season. Number 3. Gibernau, the Spaniard who had the talent to win a MotoGP championship but never quite got there. And Biaggi hated him for a reason most people never understood. It wasn't about on-track battles, it was about status. Gibernau was Valentino Rossi's primary rival for several seasons in MotoGP. The media loved their battle. The fans obsessed over Rossi versus Gibernau. And Biaggi watched from the sidelines thinking, that should be me. Biaggi believed he was the rightful challenger to Rossi. He was the original rival. The first man to go to war with Rossi when everyone else was too afraid. But Gibernau came along with his smooth style and his sponsor-friendly smile and stole that position. The cameras turned away from Biaggi. The narratives moved on. And suddenly, Max Biaggi was the third man in a two-man story. That demotion in the paddock hierarchy burned worse than any crash. Biaggi hated Gibernau not for what he did on track, but for what he represented. A replacement, a newer model, proof that the sport had moved on from Max Biaggi while Max Biaggi was still fighting. But the next two names on this list aren't just riders Biaggi hated. They're the two men who defined his entire existence. Number 2, Jorge Lorenzo, the Spaniard who proved that Max Biaggi's era was officially over. Lorenzo arrived in MotoGP in 2008 with 3 250 cubic centimeters world championships and a confidence that reminded everyone of a younger Biaggi. Same arrogance, same self-belief, same refusal to bow to anyone. But Lorenzo backed it up in the premier class in ways Biaggi never could. 3 MotoGP championships, 47 victories, and a level of consistency that Biaggi could only dream about. And that's what created the hatred, because Biaggi saw himself in Lorenzo. The same fire, the same hunger, the same attitude that made the paddock uncomfortable. But Lorenzo won where Biaggi failed. Lorenzo conquered MotoGP. Biaggi never did. And watching a younger version of yourself succeed where you couldn't is the most specific kind of torture a competitor can experience. Biaggi never admitted this publicly. He never said Lorenzo's name with venom in interviews. But the silence was louder than any insult, because every time Lorenzo stood on the top step of the podium in MotoGP, it was a reminder that Biaggi's talent was never the problem. Something else was. And Biaggi spent years trying to figure out what that something was. Was it the bike? Was it the team? Was it timing? Or was it the one rival who consumed every ounce of his energy and left nothing for anyone else? That rival is number 1 on this list, and you already know his name. Number 1, Valentino Rossi, the man who stole Max Biaggi's life. And that's not an exaggeration. Before Rossi arrived, Biaggi was the future of Italian motorcycle racing. The Roman Emperor. 4 world titles. Cover of every magazine. The man the fans screamed for. Then a skinny kid from Tavullia showed up with a goofy smile and a talent so absurd it made Biaggi look ordinary. And from that moment, Biaggi's world burned to the ground. Their hatred started in the 250 cubic centimeters class. The famous restaurant confrontation where words were exchanged that both men have never fully repeated. It followed them into the 500 cubic centimeters class and then MotoGP. Every race between Rossi and Biaggi was a civil war. Italy split in 2, Rossi fans versus Biaggi fans, North versus South, joy versus pride, and Rossi won. Every single time it mattered, not every race, but every war, every championship, every narrative. Rossi became the greatest of all time. Biaggi became the man Rossi beat on his way to greatness. And that's the role Biaggi hated most, not rival, not enemy. Footnote. Biaggi gave everything he had to beat Rossi. He trained harder, changed teams, changed bikes, changed strategies. Nothing worked. Because Rossi wasn't just better on the motorcycle. He was better at everything. The media, the mind games, the celebrations that made Biaggi's blood boil. The way Rossi could humiliate you on track and make the whole world laugh about it. Biaggi hated Rossi with every cell in his body, and at 54 years old, that fire hasn't dimmed. Because some hatreds aren't built on anger. They're built on the truth you can never accept. And Biaggi's truth is simple. Rossi was better. And nothing in this world hurts more than that. Max Biaggi was never meant to be second. He was born with the talent of a champion and the pride of an emperor. But the sport had other plans. Capirossi broke his trust. Harada stole his crown. Gibernau stole his spotlight. Lorenzo proved what he couldn't, and Rossi took everything else. At 54, the Roman emperor still wears his armor. He just never won the war. Subscribe for more untold racing stories.